My sisters, my daughters, my women of valor, I came today not to shame you, not to blame you, but to wake you out of a situation that is pulling you into a shadow of your own worth. You see, sometimes the enemy won't come through a storm. Sometimes he won't come with chains, sometimes he'll come dressed in a suit, smiling, married, and messy. Now let me be clear, this ain't about him, this is about you. This is about you discerning the difference between attention and intention, between being chosen and being used. Some of you are caught in a dance with a man who's already made vows, and now you're wondering, is he in love with me? Let me talk to you today, not to condemn you, but to call you higher. Because the truth is, some of you are in situations where it looks like love, sounds like affection, and even feels like destiny. But something inside you still whispers, this isn't right. You know what's confusing. When someone starts making you feel like you are the center of their world, but their world is already built somewhere else. You didn't ask for it. You didn't seek it out. Maybe it started innocent. A conversation turned into a connection. A compliment turned into a craving. And suddenly the man you knew was married began turning his heart toward you. And you ask yourself, why me? At first it seems flattering. He starts rearranging his time to fit you in. Suddenly his evenings belong to you. He says he's busy at work, but really, he's busy finding a way to see you. He starts skipping out on family dinners. He cancels plans with his wife and blames it on stress or exhaustion. But the truth is, he's been pouring himself into you. But let me tell you something, woman of God. Just because a man prioritizes you doesn't mean he honors you. You can't mistake attention for intention. You can't confuse affection with alignment. He might be pouring into you right now, but at what cost? At the cost of another woman's tears, at the cost of broken vows, at the cost of you becoming the secret instead of the blessing. What looks like favor might just be a fracture in his integrity. See, when a married man begins shifting his energy from his home to you, it is not evidence of lovey-tea, it is evidence of dysfunction. Real love doesn't lead two hearts into hiding. Real love doesn't flourish in darkness. Real love is bold, not borrowed. It is committed, not conflicted. And you, yes you, deserve the kind of love that doesn't require stealing someone else's moments just to feel chosen. When he starts prioritizing you over his wife, his children, his family commitments, don't let your emotions blind you. Because while it may feel like you're the chosen one, what you're really becoming is the recipient of divided loyalty. Let me help you see what's really happening. A man whose heart is wandering, a man who's feeding your soul but starving his household, is a man who hasn't dealt with his own brokenness. He's not loving you, he's escaping with you. And here's the truth you must hold on to. The right man values more than your looks. He sees your worth, your calling, your character, not just your style or scent. The right man will honor your destiny, not damage it. But when a married man begins making you his emotional home, he is not lifting you up. He's pulling you into his confusion. It's a trap disguised as romance. It's dysfunction with a heartbeat. And you deserve better than being someone's second story when God has written you to be someone's first love. I know this isn't easy to hear. I know your heart might be entangled. You might be telling yourself, but he understands me, he listens, he's there when no one else is. But sis, if you have to borrow someone else's husband to feel seen, it's not love. It's lack. It's lack of healing, lack of identity, lack of discernment, and I'm not saying you're the villain. I'm saying you're vulnerable. Vulnerable to a kind of brokenness that sneaks in wearing a smile and smelling like safety. But make no mistake, when a man turns away from the woman he made vows to and pours that same promise into you, he's not showing you how much he loves you. He's showing you how little he values covenant, because if he'll shift his focus from her to you now, what's to say he won't shift again when the next distraction shows up? What's built on betrayal will break under pressure. What's born in confusion will crumble in clarity. Let me ask you something hard. What if God is not sending him to you? What if the enemy is using him to delay you? Because while you're wrapped up in his stolen attention, you're not available for the man who will love you freely, completely, publicly. There's a difference between being chosen and being convenient. And you weren't made to be somebody's escape. You were made to be someone's answer. But as long as you're wrapped up in something God never ordained, you'll never be positioned for what he really has for you. I came to speak to your spirit. I came to wake up the woman in you who's tired of crying at night, tired of hiding, tired of being halfway loved. You know it's not right. You feel it deep down, and no matter how many sweet things he says, your soul knows the truth. That's why it doesn't sit right. Because you weren't made to be a secret, you were made to be a covenant. So don't be flattered that he's making you a priority. Ask yourself what that says about his principles. A man with real character doesn't sacrifice one woman's trust to build another woman's hope. A man who honors God doesn't build intimacy on the foundation of infidelity, and don't let the chemistry fool you. Chemistry without character is just a collision waiting to happen. He might be prioritizing you now, but where does that leave you in the end? Broken, blamed, bruised. You're worth more than that. You're worth waiting for. You're worth praying for. You're worth loving out loud, not behind closed doors. Let me say it again for the woman who needs to hear it deep in her bones. The right man values more than your looks. He sees your worth, your calling, your character, not just your style or scent. And when he sees that, he'll wait for you the right way. He'll come to you free. He'll come to you whole. He'll come to you without secrets, without guilt, without someone else's wedding band in his pocket. So don't settle for a half. Love from a half-available man. You are a whole woman, and it's time to love yourself like it. Walk away from what's draining you. Step into the light. Let God heal you. Let him make room for what's real, what's righteous, and what's right for your life. And let every counterfeit love fall to the ground. You were never meant to be somebody's secret season. You were meant to be somebody's sacred promise. Now walk like it. When his loyalty begins to shift, and his time, his energy, and his emotions start flowing more into you than into the family, he built It's Not Love, baby. It's misplaced emotion dressed up as affection. This is written in the style inspired by T.D. Jakes, powerful, reflective, and soul-stirring, without using any subheadings or keywords. You see, one of the most dangerous illusions in life is mistaking broken boundaries for deep affection, and the heart is tricky. Oh, it's tricky. Because it can take a wrong thing, wrap it in emotion, tie it with tenderness, and convince you it's right. But hear me when I say this. Just because it feels good doesn't mean it's God. Just because it's intense doesn't mean it's intentional. And just because he's giving you his time doesn't mean he's giving you his truth. There's something subtle, almost seductive, that happens when a man begins to shift his loyalty. At first, it's so small, you almost don't notice. A little more time texting you, a little longer on the phone, a few more details about his day, his struggles, his stress, and slowly, quietly, without even trying, you become the place he retreats to instead of the home he returns to. It doesn't start in scandal, it starts in the silence, the kind where he says, "I just need someone to talk to." And suddenly what used to go to his wife, his thoughts, his reflections, his intimacy, starts coming to you. He'll say, "You understand me better than she does." He'll say, "I feel like I can breathe when I'm around you." He'll say, "She doesn't see me anymore." And you start thinking, maybe I was sent to him for this season. Maybe I'm the one who really gets him. No, baby, you're not the answer. He's avoiding the real question. What's happening is not love. It's a misdirection of emotional loyalty. You've become his safe place, but at the cost of someone else's security. And let me tell you, any connection that requires him to neglect his own covenant is not a connection rooted in truth. It's a connection wrapped in confusion. Let me break it down. When a man starts investing more of his emotional weight into you than into the woman he vowed his life to, it may feel like passion, but it's really a fracture in his integrity, a fracture in his discipline. A fracture in the way he honors what he said at the altar, and if you're not careful, you'll start feeding on that attention like it's a blessing, when really, it's just borrowed affection with a broken expiration date. You think it's intimacy, but it's displacement. You think it's romance, but it's retreat. He's not drawing close to you because he's whole. He's drawing close to you because something in him is unhealed. And when a wounded man starts giving you the pieces he won't fix at home, you become his escape, not his partner. There's a difference. When a man stops pouring into the place he built and starts pouring into you, you might feel chosen, but you've been selected for a substitute role. You're playing a part that doesn't belong to you, reading lines that were never meant for your script. And no matter how convincing he sounds, no matter how vulnerable he gets, no matter how deep the conversations go, if it started with divided loyalty, it will end in divided hearts. Now hear me, this is not about blaming you, this is about waking you, because some of you are loving men who are married, not because you set out to, but because brokenness finds brokenness, and in his wounds he saw your need for affirmation. In his absence from home he saw your hunger to be seen. In his unmet needs he found an open door into your waiting heart. But you deserve more than a man who needs you in secret. You deserve more than a man who gives you what should belong to someone else. You deserve more than midnight texts, quick lunches, and hidden moments that leave you feeling full for a second and empty for a lifetime. Because here's the truth. When he chooses you over his family, it's not love. It's avoidance, it's a coping mechanism, it's emotional adultery wrapped in charm, and let's be honest, if you weren't in the picture, someone else might be. Because it's not about you being special, it's about him being emotionally undisciplined. Love doesn't sneak, it doesn't hide, it doesn't creep into inboxes, it doesn't ask you to be a secret, it doesn't steal time meant for someone else. Love builds, love waits, love honors, love protects. What he's giving you is not love. It's his leftovers. It's the part of him that's tired of being responsible. The part of him that wants to feel young again, wanted again, admired again. And he's using you to fill a gap that only God or healing or honest conversation can fix. Let me speak into the quiet places of your soul. You are not a filler for his frustration. You are not a mirror for his broken masculinity. You are not the therapy he never got, and you are not the woman God sent to complete a man who won't fix his mess. No matter how sincere he seems, no matter how much he says, you're the only one who gets me. Watch his feet, not his feelings. Is he making moves toward wholeness? Is he willing to confront the mess at home? Is he taking responsibility, or is he just finding a soft place to land when life gets hard? Because if he really loved you, if he truly honored what he feels for you, he wouldn't build it on broken promises. He wouldn't sneak, he wouldn't lie, he wouldn't risk your dignity, your future, and your peace. He would make it right, and let's not romanticize dysfunction. Let's not turn soul ties into fairy tales. Let's not dress up dishonor and call it destiny. A real man doesn't offer you stolen moments. He offers you his name, his commitment, his full self. So if his time, his energy, and his emotion are flowing into you, while his wife is wondering where he is, if he's turning his face toward you while turning his back on his vows, don't call that love. Call it what it is, misplaced emotion dressed up as affection. And you, woman of worth, must know who you are. You must know you were never created to be an emotional backup plan. You were never meant to live in the shadows of someone else's marriage. You were never designed to be the what-if in another person's life. You are the only one in the right man's life, but until you stop accepting crumbs from a broken table, you'll never sit at the feast God prepared for you. Until you walk away from what's halfway, you won't receive what's whole. Until you let go of being someone's second choice, you won't become someone's only one. So I speak to your spirit, I speak to your heart, I speak to the woman within you who knows this ain't it. You've cried enough. You've waited enough, you've justified enough, and now it's time to rise up in wisdom and walk away from confusion, because you are worth a love that's free, full, and fearless. And if he has to choose between you and the life he already built, let him choose it. Because if you have to be chosen second, you were never meant to be chosen at all. There is a kind of closeness that doesn't come from love. It comes from wounds, from broken places, from the quiet hollows of the soul that are desperate to be heard, seen, and soothed. And when a man begins to unravel those hidden places in your direction, it can feel like intimacy, like closeness, like you've been chosen. But sometimes what looks like depth is just drifting. What sounds like trust is just transfer. The transfer of unhealed pain from one place to another. He starts talking to you, really talking. He tells you she doesn't understand him. He says she doesn't listen anymore, says the love they used to have has dried up. And while he's speaking, there's something in his voice that sounds familiar. Vulnerable, broken, real, and before you even realize it, you're pulled in, not by lust, but by compassion. You start feeling like you're his safe space, the one who gets him, the one who listens, the one who sees what she's been too distracted to notice. But I came to warn you, not every confession is an invitation. Not every wound shared is meant to be healed by your hands. Some men aren't confessing to connect. They're offloading. They're not drawing near to build. They're drifting away from accountability. And there you are, catching pieces of a man that he should have laid on the altar of prayer, not in the arms of another woman. Don't confuse emotional bleeding for romantic bonding. He's not sharing because he's ready. He's sharing because he's leaking. And broken men, unhealed men, restless men will often build side stories instead of fixing home truths. Because it's easier to rewrite history with you than it is to confront reality with her. It's easier to craft a narrative of neglect than it is to look in the mirror and own his role in what's gone wrong. And now you've become both the listener and the landing pad, not because you asked for it, but because he came to you with his pain dressed in poetry. He'll paint his sadness like a Picasso, layered, abstract, heavy with emotion. He'll make you believe you're the answer to a question he's been too tired to ask at home. And suddenly you feel responsible for his happiness, for his healing, for holding him up when she couldn't or wouldn't. But let me tell you this, it's not your job to be the balm for a man who won't face his own bruises. If he's truly broken, he needs a counselor, not a crush. He needs repentance, not romance. He needs to fix his own house before trying to build something new in yours. You were not made to be a refuge from responsibility. Yes, he's soft when he talks to you. Yes, he's open. But openness without order is just emotional chaos. Intimacy without integrity is manipulation. And you weren't called to carry a man's wounds that he won't take to God. It's dangerous when a man leads with his scars, not because vulnerability is wrong, but because the wrong kind of vulnerability, offered too soon, too intensely, and in the wrong direction, is not intimacy, it's instability. He's not sharing to draw you close, he's sharing to escape the consequences, escape the silence at home, escape the version of himself he no longer recognizes when he looks across the dinner table. And he's using your compassion as a getaway car. He may not even realize it. Pain has a way of making people do things they never planned to, but if you're not careful, you'll become an accomplice to his avoidance. You'll start shaping your life around his stories. You'll feel called to fix, to comfort, to rescue. But baby, you are not the paramedic to a marriage that is bleeding. You are not the therapist to a man who refuses accountability. You are not the restoration for a house he's still burning down. What he calls chemistry might be codependency. What he calls understanding might just be your inability to detach from his suffering. But hear me, empathy is holy. Until it becomes a prison, you can care without compromising. You can love without lowering your standards. You can feel his pain without becoming the painkiller that helps him numb what he should be facing. Because if he was whole, if he was healed, if he was ready, He wouldn't be handing you pieces of his pain as though they were precious gifts. He would be bringing you peace. He would be coming to you free, not fractured. But when a man starts building emotional intimacy with you in place of working through what's broken at home, you have to ask yourself, am I helping him heal or helping him hide? There's a difference between being a confidant and being a cover-up. And some of you are in relationships you were never meant to be in, not because you chased them, but because you were too kind to walk away when he cried, too patient to say no when he said, I just need someone to talk to. But sis, it's not your assignment to carry the weight of a man who won't clean up his own mess. You weren't made to be the ear to a story that isn't yours. You weren't made to be the midnight confession booth for guilt that should have been laid at the feet of Jesus. You were made to be a woman of value, a woman of vision, a woman of virtue. Not a soft place for sin to settle when it's tired of running. And I know it feels good to be needed. I know it feels powerful to be trusted. But don't let the illusion of closeness rob you of your clarity. If he's not free, if he's not healed, if he's not whole, then he's not ready, and no amount of deep conversation can change the truth that he still belongs to someone else. Let him go heal, let him fix what he broke, let him wrestle with his own reality, because if you stay, if you keep catching his tears and calling it love, you'll wake up one day empty, wondering how you became the holding tank for someone else's emotional baggage. You were never meant to be the place where broken men unpack without repairing. You were never meant to be the woman who takes in confessions but never receives commitment. You deserve a man who comes to you healed. You deserve a love that doesn't begin in a lie. You deserve someone who doesn't use your softness to avoid their own strength. So let him speak, let him cry, but let him do it without pulling you into his confusion. Because the man God has for you will not need to escape another woman just to find his way to you. He will be whole, he will be ready, and he will not offer his wounds as intimacy. He will offer his heart in truth. When a man starts sacrificing his status, skipping boundaries, ignoring protocol just to steal a moment with you, that's not just love, that's a collision course. Love never has to sneak. This is written in a powerful, soulful sermon, inspired tone, much like the style of T.D. Jakes, without subheadings or keywords. There's something seductive about being chosen in secret, something that makes the heart skip a beat when a man starts bending rules just to see your face, something that feels like a movie when he slips out of meetings, sidesteps obligations, and rearranges his whole schedule just to catch a few minutes with you. At first, it feels like love, raw, passionate, desperate. He's risking everything just to be near you. Isn't that what love looks like? Isn't that the stuff of fairy tales? But let me tell you something deeper. Something that doesn't always shout over the noise of butterflies and whispered phone calls. When a man is willing to risk his reputation just to get a taste of something outside his commitment, that's not love. That's chaos disguised as chemistry. That's not romance. That's rebellion against responsibility. Because real love, mature love, love that's shaped by truth and not just temptation, it doesn't sneak, it doesn't hide, it doesn't tear down boundaries in the name of passion. Real love stands in the open. Real love walks in the light. Real love honors not just what it feels, but what it has promised. So when a man begins skipping over boundaries, ignoring the rules, dismantling the safeguards that once protected his name, his home, and his integrity, you better stop and ask yourself, is this about me, or is this about him running from himself? It's easy to confuse boldness with bravery, easy to look at his pursuit of you and call it courage, when really it's just the recklessness of a man who no longer fears the consequences. He's not being brave, he's being broken. He's not choosing love, he's choosing escape. You see, when a man loves you right, he won't have to love you in hiding. He won't have to lie to be near you. He won't need to make excuses or delete messages or duck behind closed doors. Love doesn't require a disguise. Love doesn't ask you to meet in the shadows. Love doesn't schedule itself in the margins of another commitment. If he's ducking and dodging, if he's watching the clock and whispering his truth only in stolen moments, he's not choosing you. He's cheating the life he already built. And any man who will cheat on one thing will cheat on another. That means if he's cheating on his commitment to her just to be with you, what makes you think he won't cheat on his commitment to you when someone else comes along who stirs his emotions in a different way? Don't let the secrecy fool you. Don't let the risks he takes convince you that what you have is special, because what looks like sacrifice can sometimes be sabotage. He's not laying down his life for you. He's dismantling his reputation, his credibility, and yours, too. He's burning bridges he may never rebuild just to chase a feeling that may never last. He calls it passion, but it's panic. He calls it love, but it's lust mixed with loneliness wrapped in drama, and you deserve more than that. You deserve more than being someone's thrill, more than being someone's guilty pleasure, more than being the reason someone steps out of character and calls it fate. Real love is not messy. It doesn't leave a trail of broken promises and suspicious glances. It doesn't need to hide behind closed blinds or fake phone numbers. If what he has with you can't stand in the daylight, it's not love. It's a liability, and here's the part we don't like to admit. Some of us fall for the thrill because it makes us feel important. Because when someone is willing to risk it all for us, we confuse that with being valued. But being pursued recklessly doesn't mean you're cherished. It just means someone is willing to burn their life down for a moment of comfort, not a lifetime of covenant. Think about it. If he's willing to risk his job, his name, his marriage, his friendships, if he's ready to throw all that away just to be near you, what happens when the rush wears off, when the adrenaline fades and all that's left is the ashes of what used to be? What do you think you'll be left holding? Do you think you'll walk into a new future with peace? Or will you inherit his old problems with a new face? That's not love. That's a collision course. Two people crashing into each other, full speed, no brakes, no plan, no accountability. And it may feel exciting for a season, but eventually every crash leaves damage, and don't let your heart get addicted to being someone's exception, because the same fire that draws you in is the fire that will consume you later. And if the foundation of what you're building is made of secrets and lies, don't be surprised when the structure falls. You weren't made for pieces of someone else's life. You weren't designed to live in stolen hours and deleted call logs. That's not your portion. That's not your promise. That's not your peace. You were created to be loved out loud, fully, faithfully, freely, without the fear of being exposed, without the shame of wondering if today is the day everything falls apart. So if he's willing to risk everything for you, pause. Ask yourself, what's really driving this? Is it love or is it lack? Is it connection or is it crisis? Because sometimes the man who's running toward you isn't running for you. He's just running from something else. And when you become the finish line for a man running from accountability, all you'll inherit is his unfinished business. Love doesn't have to rush. It doesn't have to hide. It doesn't have to step on the ruins of someone else's story just to feel strong. And maybe this is the moment you stop letting the flattery of risky romance fool you into thinking it's real. Maybe this is where you turn your heart back toward wisdom. Maybe this is where you stop accepting attention as affection and start demanding the kind of love that doesn't sneak, doesn't break, doesn't settle for second place. Because the love that God has for you, real, lasting, whole love, will not require you to compromise your integrity to receive it. It will not invite you into the darkness to prove its light. It will not call sin a sacrifice. It will be honest. It will be clear. And it will be proud to have you. So if he has to risk his reputation just to be with you, ask yourself, is he building love or creating scandal? Because the man who truly loves you won't gamble with your soul just to hold your hand. He will honor you in the open, and when it's real, it won't have to sneak to be seen. There's a sound that some women know too well. It doesn't come in the form of commitment, nor does it carry the clarity of a vow. It's softer than a promise, lighter than truth, and slipperier than oil. It comes disguised in late night whispers and empty daydreams. It shows up as if I wasn't married, and when the time is right, and one day things will be different. But let me tell you something, baby. If it doesn't come with a plan, it's not a promise, it's a fantasy. There's something intoxicating about hearing a man dream aloud about a future that includes you. It sounds like intimacy, it feels like hope, and for a moment it seems like you're building something real. But listen close. Hope without structure is deception in disguise. Words without timelines are nothing more than emotional placeholders, keeping your heart engaged in a story that has no destination. When a man truly loves you with the kind of love that is rooted, grounded, and God-fearing, he doesn't just speak of the future, he prepares for it. He doesn't romanticize what could be while ignoring what is. He takes steps, he sets order, he moves in integrity, he faces hard truths, not soft excuses, because love without a plan is not love. It's a trap that keeps you emotionally tethered to a version of reality that only exists in conversation. So when he starts painting pictures of a life you could have together talking about how things would be if circumstances were different, but doesn't actually do anything to change those circumstances, you need to understand what's happening. That's not a vision, that's a stall tactic. That's a man keeping your hope alive just long enough to keep you where he wants you, emotionally available, spiritually distracted, and mentally invested in something he has no intention of building. He might say he's in love, he might even believe it, but a man in love has vision. A man in confusion sells fantasy, and confusion loves company. It loves to linger, to delay, to entangle you in dreams while avoiding decisions. It speaks in riddles and builds castles in the sky, but never lays a brick on the ground. And if you're not careful, you'll find yourself emotionally moved by a man who is spiritually stuck. You'll start building with him in your mind, thinking about the house, the vacations, the life you'd live together. You'll find yourself replaying his words, memorizing the soft tones of his longing. But you have to understand, intention without execution is manipulation. Not always on purpose, not always out of malice, but manipulation nonetheless. If I wasn't married is not a statement of courage. It's a shield of cowardice. It's a way to express desire without disrupting comfort. It's a way to keep you close without doing the work of making space for you in reality. It's the language of indecision, the dialect of distraction, the poetry of passivity. He's not making plans. He's making excuses sound like dreams. He's not changing. He's just changing the subject because planning costs something. Planning requires sacrifice. It demands clarity and courage and action. And if he truly wanted to build a life with you, he wouldn't leave you hanging in emotional limbo, hoping that someday his situation will magically align with his feelings. He would tell the truth. He would clear the path. He would make the hard calls, because love without movement is deception wearing cologne. And sometimes we cling to those words because we want to believe them. We want to believe that love can exist outside of alignment. We want to believe that one day the pieces will fall into place. But hear me, if a man is talking about forever without building toward it, he is wasting your present with a fantasy about a future he'll never fight for. God is not the author of confusion, and the love he ordains is never founded on indecision. It does not thrive in secrecy, nor does it flourish in scenarios that require emotional adultery. Love that comes from God is clear. It is bold. It is sacrificial. It is willing to walk through the fire of consequence to stand in the light of integrity. So if you're sitting with a man who keeps feeding you the hope of someday, I want you to pause. Ask yourself, how long have I been hearing this story? How many somedays have passed without movement? How many holidays, birthdays, anniversaries, and quiet nights have gone by with no real shift in his reality? Because you deserve more than if. You deserve more than maybe. You deserve more than being the emotional escape route for someone who lacks the courage to confront his truth. and don't let your heart get drunk on the sound of potential. Because potential doesn't feed you, potential doesn't protect you, potential doesn't honor you. You can't build a life on what if, you can't raise children on one day, you can't find peace in when the time is right. You need a man who doesn't just dream about a future with you. He prepares for it. He doesn't just imagine what it would be like. He aligns his life to make it possible. He moves from fantasy to faith, from wishful thinking to real, tangible change. Because true love doesn't live in imagination, it lives in action. And I know it's hard to let go of those sweet nothings. I know it's difficult to walk away when someone says all the right things. But your destiny is too valuable to waste on a man who's all mouth and no motion. Your time is too precious to invest in a story that's never going to unfold. So step back, breathe, look at the fruit, not the feelings. Has he made changes? Has he taken steps? Has he counted the cost and started paying the price? Or is he still talking in circles, still casting vision without laying a foundation? Because a man who's serious won't need to convince you with poetry. He'll show you with patterns. A man who's ready won't leave you wondering. He'll make it clear, not just with words, but with consistent, sacrificial action. So guard your heart, not just from lust, but from lazy love. Love that feels good but refuses to grow up. Love that talks but doesn't walk. Love that sounds right but lives wrong. You were never meant to be a footnote in someone else's dream. You were never designed to be the emotional side dish to a man already committed elsewhere. You were made to be pursued, to be honored, to be loved in truth and in action. So the next time he says, "If I wasn't married," remember, if he's not free, he's not yours. And if he has no plan, he has no right to paint your future in his words. Love is not built on daydreams. It's built on decisions. And if he won't make them, then you must. It starts so quietly you almost don't notice it. A text here, a call there, maybe it's just a check-in, or maybe it's him sharing something funny that happened at work. Then one day it's something heavier. He had an argument with his wife. He's overwhelmed at home. He feels misunderstood, unseen, and slowly, bit by bit, without ever signing up for it, you become the one he turns to. You become his safe place, his release valve, his counselor, his emotional anchor. But what he calls connection, what feels like closeness, is really a slow erosion of boundaries. It's intimacy without structure. Vulnerability without covering. It's the soul-level exchange of a covenant. But without the covenant, he's not committed to you, but he's pulling on you, leaning on you, depending on you. And while you think it's love growing, what's really growing is need. And need without order is dangerous. He's not calling you to build a life. He's calling you to unload his. You've become the storage unit for everything he can't say at home. The safe space for everything he can't process in his marriage. And the danger is, it feels like you're helping. It feels like compassion. After all, he's hurting and you're just listening. You're just being a friend. But friend, be careful. Emotional intimacy is often the first door open to emotional adultery. The calls get longer, the texts become more frequent, he tells you things he doesn't even tell his wife, and you start to feel special, not just because he trusts you, but because he needs you, because he confides in you. Because when he's weary, you're the one he turns to. But hear me, being needed is not the same as being chosen. Needing you emotionally doesn't mean he's committed to you spiritually. Don't confuse access with authority. You have his heart in conversation, but she still has his name in covenant. You've become his emotional wife, but never his covenantal partner. And slowly, the line between what's appropriate and what's not gets blurry. What started as friendship becomes a soul tie. What began as encouragement becomes dependence. And what once felt innocent now feels weighty. You feel responsible for his peace, for his happiness. You carry the burden of his emotional well-being like it's your job, like you're married in spirit, even though you're not married in truth. And here's the thing about emotional affairs, they don't come with scandal at first. They come with sympathy. They don't wear red lipstick and heels. They wear sweatpants and kindness. They look like friendship. They feel like connection. but they are every bit as dangerous as the physical ones, may be even more. Because physical infidelity happens in a moment, but emotional infidelity happens over time. It builds, it bonds, it binds. You start giving your emotional energy to someone else's husband, and before long, you've got no room left for your own healing. You start making space for his brokenness and forget to check in on your own. You pray for him, you encourage him, you invest in him, and slowly your own life gets put on pause because you've stepped into a role that was never yours to carry. You're carrying the weight of covenant with none of the covering. You're giving wifely energy to a man who's never paid the price to earn it. You're serving his soul like you're his helpmate, but in God's eyes, you are not his. You've been tricked into playing a role without the ring. You're doing the work of intimacy without the promise of fidelity. And one day, you'll look up and realize you've spent months, maybe years, tethered to a man who doesn't even belong to you, not in the eyes of God, not in the laws of the land, and not in the spiritual realm either. And when the storms hit his life, and they will, don't be surprised if he runs back to the place he actually covenanted with, because as close as you may feel, as deeply as he may confide in you, he never left her. He just borrowed you, borrowed your time, borrowed your heart, borrowed your spirit, and when people borrow something they didn't pay for, they rarely treat it with the honor it deserves. Let's tell the truth, he might be using you to carry what he refuses to confront. He might be depending on you because it's easier than doing the emotional labor required at home. You've become the softer landing, the easier route, the one who understands without challenging. But understand this, a man who really loves you won't use you as an escape hatch from the responsibilities of his life. A man who is truly whole will not need to lean on you like a crutch while standing in a broken marriage. If he really values you, he won't bring you into his confusion. He will remove confusion before trying to build anything real. Don't let emotional access trick you into thinking you're the answer. Sometimes you're not the solution. You're just the silence breaker. You're not the destiny. You're the detour. And what's tragic is this. While he leans on you emotionally, you begin to shrink. You give more than you get. You pour out, but you are never filled. You start feeling like you're in a relationship, but it's a one-way street. There's no commitment, no clarity, no protection. Just long conversations, shared secrets, and unspoken longings. You're in deep, but there's no safety net beneath you. If he decides to cut it off, walk away, or return to focus on his marriage, you'll be left with the weight of what you carried, and the pieces of a story you never got to finish. So I need you to see it for what it is. If you're his emotional spouse, but not his lawful partner, if you're carrying his heart but wearing no ring, if you're doing the work of intimacy without the dignity of a covenant, you need to step back. Because your soul wasn't built to be someone's in-between. You weren't designed to carry burdens that don't belong to you, and your heart deserves more than leftovers from a man who's emotionally married to one woman and spiritually entangled with another. You deserve clarity. You deserve peace. You deserve to be chosen out loud, not depended on in the dark. Love is not meant to be a hidden place of refuge for broken men running from their own homes. It's meant to be a holy union, sealed in truth and covered in God's timing. So if you find yourself being someone's comfort zone, someone's emotional life jacket, someone's daily dose of stability, ask yourself, who's carrying you? Because love that's built right will never leave you drained. It will never treat you like a secret or a safety net, and it will never ask you to be a wife without giving you the honor that comes with the name. Let him go, let the calls stop, let the emotional cords be cut. You're not his therapist, you're not his rescue mission, and you are not his emotional wife. You are a daughter of the Most High. You were made to be loved fully, faithfully, and freely, without confusion. Without compromise, without carrying what's not yours, release him, reclaim you, and let God send the one who will carry you, just as you are meant to be carried. You can't help who you fall in love with. God knows my heart. Don't let twisted truth become your gospel. If it starts in brokenness, it cannot end in blessing. There's a dangerous kind of logic that slips into the hearts of the broken. A soft, soothing kind of deception that doesn't scream rebellion but whispers it, gently, seductively, even spiritually. It dresses itself up in sentiment. It borrows the language of grace while ignoring the weight of truth. It sounds like, "You can't help who you fall in love with." It echoes, "God knows my heart." But just because it feels good and sounds deep doesn't make it right. When someone wants to justify something that's out of order, they don't come with facts, they come with feelings. They don't show you principles, they show you pain, and in that pain they start bending truth like branches in a storm. Not breaking it outright, just shaping it into something more convenient, something less confronting. And before you know it, what God clearly called disorder is now being passed off as destiny. You can't help who you fall in love with. That phrase has been the anthem of countless wrong turns. It's been the lullaby sung over infidelity, over betrayal, over confusion. And while it sounds poetic, it's poison wrapped in a proverb, because love, real love, holy love, godly love, is not just something you fall into. It's something you choose. It's not a trap you stumble into. It's a covenant you walk into with eyes wide open. Don't let emotional rhetoric silence spiritual conviction. The heart is deceitful above all things, not just occasionally, but continually. That's not my opinion, that's the word. So when someone tells you that their feelings are reason enough to override righteousness, know this: they've let desire become doctrine. They've traded in obedience for emotional relief. And when he looks at you and says, "God knows my heart," understand what he's really saying. He's not surrendering to divine mercy. He's shielding himself from accountability. Yes, God knows your heart. He knows when it's conflicted. He knows when it's compromised. He knows when it's trying to serve two masters, hold two hands, live two lives, and the fact that he knows it should make us tremble, not relax. God knows when your love is out of order. He knows when your passion has outrun your principles. He knows when you're trying to call confusion connection and trying to call emotional adultery intimacy. And just because you feel strongly doesn't mean it's sacred. We've got to stop treating emotions like they're a compass. Feelings were never designed to lead. They were designed to follow. And when you put them in the driver's seat of your life, they'll take you places your soul was never meant to go. They'll take you into late, night phone calls that feel like love but smell like compromise. They'll take you into justifications that numb your conscience while wounding your destiny. Let me ask you, what is it costing you to hold on to a love that doesn't belong to you? What parts of your peace have you traded for a man who can't commit to you in the light? What altars have you built to a connection that never had God's stamp of approval? You can't claim blessing over something that started in brokenness. God does not build covenant on confusion. He does not birth purpose from affairs. He does not honor what was born out of rebellion, even if you cloak it in romance, and deep down you know it. Deep down, when the calls are quiet and the rush of emotion fades, there's an ache, a still small voice that says, "This isn't right." You don't need a prophet to tell you what the Holy Spirit has already been whispering in your spirit, that if it had to be hidden to be sustained, it was never holy to begin with. That if it pulls you away from peace, from clarity, from God's order, it's not love, it's bondage dressed up in butterflies. The enemy is clever. He won't always show up with temptation that looks like sin. Sometimes he shows up with temptation that looks like a soulmate, and instead of fire and brimstone he offers comfort. Instead of shame he offers sympathy. He'll have you believing that this connection is a gift, that this man is different, that this story is special. But listen, God doesn't give gifts that belong to somebody else. He doesn't send you someone else's husband and call it favor. He doesn't write your name on a chapter that was never yours to begin with. That's not divine orchestration, that's emotional trespassing, And if you're the one using these phrases to justify where you are, if you've been telling yourself, we didn't plan this, or it just happened, or God knows how much I've been through, I want to challenge you to step out of your feelings and step into the truth. Yes, God knows your heart, but He also knows what He called holy. He knows the sacredness of covenant. And He will never give you peace about being someone's escape route from responsibility. God doesn't bless back doors. He doesn't anoint affairs, and He won't sign a relationship that required disobedience to get started. You've got to ask yourself, what truth am I twisting to stay comfortable? Because a twisted truth becomes a false gospel, and when you start following your own gospel, your own version of what God approves, you'll end up far from the life He actually intended for you. Let the tears come. Let the ache rise, but don't build your life on emotional loopholes. Don't rewrite Scripture just to fit your situation. God's truth does not change based on your chemistry with someone, and your calling is too costly to lose it over something that God never assigned to your name. So what do? You pull back, you repent, not just with your lips, but with your direction. You cut ties with what's keeping you entangled. You ask God to realign your desires with His Word, and then you wait, not for another man, not for another chance at romance, but for healing, for clarity, for the restoration of your wholeness, because you are not meant to be a shadow partner in someone else's chaos. You are not meant to hold brokenness in your hands and call it blessing. And you are certainly not meant to be a character in someone else's justifications. You are worth a love that doesn't need excuses to exist. A love that is clean, a love that is clear, a love that stands up in the daylight and walks in integrity, a love that doesn't need twisted logic or emotional slogans to survive. So the next time someone says, "You can't help who you fall in love with," look them in the eye and say, "Yes, but I can help who I give my life to." Because your heart deserves the kind of love that doesn't have to be defended, explained, or justified. And if it didn't start in truth, it's time for it to end. So here we are standing at the edge of truth, after all the feelings have been felt, after the justifications have been spoken, after the emotions have twisted themselves into something that looks like love but acts like confusion. It's time to decide. Will you keep living in the gray, or will you step into the light? There comes a point when you've got to ask yourself, what kind of love do I really want? The kind that leaves you hiding, that makes you second-guess who you are, that lives in the shadows and calls it sacred, or the kind that comes from a place of wholeness, clarity, and divine alignment? You were never meant to be a side note in someone else's unfinished chapter. You were never created to be a placeholder in another person's pain. Your identity, your value, your anointing, it's too precious to be wrapped around a situation that didn't begin in truth. And let me tell you something that the enemy doesn't want you to remember. You can still turn around. You can still walk away from what looks like love but feels like weight. You can still say, "This is not God's best for me." You can still reclaim your dignity, your time, your peace, and your purpose. You don't have to stay tangled up in someone else's emotional storm just because it once felt like sunshine. I know it hurts. I know there are soul ties that feel too deep to sever. I know there are memories that make you question whether walking away means walking away from something real. But real love does not contradict God's order. Real love doesn't ask you to sacrifice your wholeness for someone else's comfort. Real love comes with peace, not pretense, so don't let emotional rhetoric keep you stuck in spiritual bondage. Don't let smooth words cover rough intentions. Don't let phrases like "God knows my heart" silence the voice of the Holy Spirit in your life. God knows your heart, yes, but He also knows your potential. He knows the woman He created you to be. He knows the calling on your life. He knows the legacy He's building in you, and He knows that anything built on half, truths will eventually fall. This is your moment to choose something better, to choose healing over habit, clarity over confusion, covenant over comfort. If you've been entangled with a man who uses emotional language to justify wrong, this is your permission to let go. You don't need to wait for closure when God's already given you conviction. You don't need to keep holding on to a connection that is costing you your peace. Let him go, let the narrative die, let the fantasy unravel, let the emotional dependence break, because when you walk away from what's not real, you make room for what is, and what's real is still coming, what's holy is still possible, what's pure is still within reach. But you've got to clear the space in your life that's been occupied by counterfeits to receive what God has authentically prepared for you. He doesn't need your compromise to bless you. He doesn't need your emotional backdoors to write your love story. He doesn't need you to settle in the shadows when he's calling you into the light. So stand up. Wipe your tears, cut the tie, delete the number, block the access. Reclaim your soul and say it out loud with boldness. If it didn't start in truth, it won't end in blessing. If he can't love me in the light, he can't have me at all. I choose wholeness over hiddenness. I choose purpose over pain. Because you deserve love that doesn't need a justification to exist. Now walk forward, free.